Every day, we see the darker side of the world around us. We witness how people can hurt others in ways that are hard to understand. It's a sad part of life, but it's something we can't ignore. As someone who dives into the world of crime, I'm here to share the most shocking stories and try to understand what drives people to do such things. I'm Michael, and today, I've got another unreal true crime story for you. It was November 16th, 1995, and Linda Sobek had an exciting day ahead. She had a last-minute photo shoot lined up and an audition for a popular TV show later that afternoon. She left home feeling confident, ready to tackle both opportunities. But by the end of the day, something went terribly wrong. Linda never came back. At first, her disappearance seemed like a mystery, but as the search began, strange clues and unsettling details started to emerge. What should have been a normal day took a dark and unexpected turn. What really happened to Linda, and who was behind it? Stick around as we uncover the twists and turns of this heartbreaking case. Linda Sobek was born on July 9, 1968, in Los Angeles, California. She was the second child of Robert Sobek and Elaine. Her older brother, Steve, quickly formed a close bond with her, and their parents worked hard to instill strong values in their children. As a child, Linda was shy and deeply attached to her family. She cherished camping trips with her father and brother, while she enjoyed mother-daughter bonding activities like sharing hugs and engaging in girly projects with Elaine. As Linda entered high school, she blossomed into a more outgoing and confident teenager. Her natural beauty didn't go unnoticed, and her mother encouraged her to enhance her features with light makeup. With Elaine's guidance, Linda joined a modeling agency. Initially hesitant, she soon grew captivated by the modeling world, showing poise and confidence in front of the camera. While she initially lacked experience, Linda's dedication and hard work helped her secure modeling gigs, including small photo shoots that helped her build her portfolio. She also became a cheerleader at her school, further boosting her confidence. By the time Linda graduated high school in 1986, she knew modeling was her true calling. Despite her petite height, which posed challenges for runway work, Linda steadily booked jobs for catalogs, advertisements, and magazines. At 21, she auditioned for the cheerleading squad of a prestigious NFL team and stood out among thousands of applicants. Winning a spot on the team was a proud moment for her and her family. In 1991, her charm earned her the title of Cheerleader of the Year, a milestone that brought her recognition in the entertainment world and opportunities to meet celebrities from sports and film. 2 years later, after leaving the cheerleading squad, Linda's modeling career gained momentum. She often had 3 photo shoots in a single day. She moved into a shared house with 3 other young women also pursuing careers in modeling. Despite her busy schedule, Linda always found time to stay connected with her family, especially her mother, who remained her biggest supporter. Watching Linda succeed in the career she loved filled her family with pride and joy. Linda, however, knew that the modeling industry could be unpredictable. She began preparing for the future, setting her sights on acting. She auditioned for television roles, determined to expand her career. In October 1995, during a Las Vegas event, she handed out her business cards to photographers. The following month, she was contacted by Charles Rathbun, a well-known automotive photographer, for a photo shoot. On the morning of November 16, 1995, Linda woke up excited. She had an audition later that day for the popular sitcom Married, with Children. Early that morning, she received an unexpected call for a last-minute photo shoot. Since she had time before the audition, she agreed. At 10:45 a.m., she called her mother, mentioning she was rushing out for a session but would call back later. She didn't share details about the location or the photographer. Later that day, Elaine grew uneasy when Linda failed to call back or share how the audition went, as she usually did. Steve tried to reassure her, suggesting Linda was likely busy. By the next morning, however, Elaine's worry deepened when Linda's housemates revealed they hadn't seen or heard from her. Learning that Linda hadn't attended her audition, Elaine's fear turned into alarm. She contacted the police and reported Linda missing, convinced something terrible had happened. Initially, investigators interviewed Linda's housemates, who confirmed they last saw her just before she left for her photo shoot. They described her daily habits, noting she frequented the gym, specific stores, and her favorite restaurants. They also mentioned Linda kept meticulous records of her activities in a planner. However, despite a thorough search of her room, the planner was missing. When questioned at the gym, staff and patrons expressed their fondness for Linda, but mentioned she often skipped workouts for photo shoots. They hadn't seen her the previous day. As the investigation progressed, detectives faced a major hurdle. No one knew where Linda had gone or who she was meeting. 2 days had already passed with no updates. Meanwhile, in a wooded area of Los Angeles County, a sanitation worker found several photographs discarded in a dumpster. Struck by the beauty of the woman in the images, he kept a few for himself. Police continued interviewing Linda's ex-partners, business associates, and acquaintances, but none emerged as suspects. No one harbored ill will toward her. After 4 days of no leads, frustration mounted. Determined to take action, Linda's family and friends launched a widespread search campaign. They printed posters with her photo, detailed information about her, and a $20,000 reward for tips leading to her whereabouts. Donations quickly raised the reward fund to $100,000, and her former NFL cheerleading team issued a public statement, amplifying the case through media outlets. The story gained national attention, with TV programs dedicating significant airtime to it. Police began receiving hundreds of tips daily, but none provided concrete information. The investigation took a turn when the sanitation worker realized the woman in the photos matched the missing person in the news. He immediately contacted authorities, providing the location where he found the pictures. The next day, police scoured the area, uncovering more photographs and Linda's missing planner. They also discovered a loan agreement for a prototype vehicle dated November 16th, the day Linda disappeared. This document led them to a specific area, prompting a search involving volunteers combing the terrain. After several hours, one of Linda's friends found her unmistakable makeup bag in another dumpster, 7 miles from where the planner was found. Examining the evidence, detectives noticed the name on the vehicle loan agreement matched a contact in Linda's planner, Charles. Shortly after, police received an anonymous tip about an abandoned car in a California restaurant parking lot. The car matched the description of Linda's vehicle. Upon inspection, officers confirmed it was hers. That same afternoon, Charles Rathbun, a photographer who had occasionally worked with Linda, contacted authorities. He admitted to meeting Linda on the day she disappeared, claiming they met at a restaurant to discuss her portfolio. However, he decided she wasn't a good fit for the shoot and said they parted ways in the parking lot. When asked about the vehicle loan agreement, Charles denied any knowledge of how it ended up with Linda or in the dumpster. Despite his claims, Charles became a person of interest as he appeared to be the last person to see Linda. Digging deeper, investigators confirmed that Charles and Linda had crossed paths weeks earlier at an auto expo. Later that evening, Charles called the station, claiming he couldn't come in for questioning. Hours later, he contacted a friend, clearly intoxicated, and made bizarre statements, including implicating himself in a missing persons case. He also mentioned owning a firearm and hinted at harming himself. The friend, a reserve officer with the Los Angeles Police Department, rushed to his home with a colleague to prevent him from acting on these threats. At the time, she didn't take his earlier confession seriously, thinking it was just drunken rambling. When officers arrived at Charles Rathbun's residence, it took significant effort to convince him to come out. When he finally emerged, he was visibly intoxicated and carrying a firearm. In a sudden mishap, the gun discharged, and the bullet ricocheted off the pavement, grazing the friend who had come to assist him. Though the injury was minor, it provided sufficient grounds for the police to arrest Charles. Inside his home, officers discovered an alarming arsenal of over 100 firearms. They also seized a bag containing rope, duct tape, alcohol, and an unsettling collection of photographs. These pictures depicted models posed as though they were deceased. During questioning, Charles dramatically altered his initial story. He now claimed that Linda had been hired for a photo shoot that required her to drive and perform stunts with the prototype vehicle from the loan agreement. The session was set near a dry lake bed called El Mirage. According to his account, while demonstrating the stunts by driving in circles, he lost control of the car, accidentally striking Linda with a side mirror. Panicked upon realizing she had no vital signs, Charles said he buried her body in the nearby woods. However, he claimed he was so traumatized that he couldn't recall the exact burial site. Detectives were skeptical but lacked concrete evidence to disprove his story. They detained him temporarily and focused on exposing inconsistencies in his narrative. The next day, they recovered the vehicle, which had been meticulously cleaned multiple times. Forensic specialists found no external damage or signs of impact that would align with Charles's account. However, a closer inspection revealed reddish stains in the crevices of the seats and long blonde hairs. Additionally, a dent on the interior of one of the doors suggested a violent struggle had taken place inside the car. As the investigation deepened, troubling stories about Charles began to surface. Several models who had previously worked with him described him as unprofessional and inappropriate. Many stated that his behavior often crossed boundaries, making them uncomfortable. These accounts painted a pattern of harassment, with models only agreeing to work with him under obligation. Detectives also uncovered that Charles had faced allegations of abuse in Ohio in 1979. Although he was acquitted after claiming the relationship was consensual, the revelation added to the growing suspicions against him. Lab tests confirmed that the hair and bloodstains found in the vehicle matched Linda's DNA. Armed with this evidence, investigators devised a strategy to get Charles to disclose more information. They pretended to believe his account of the accident and expressed regret that he couldn't remember where he had buried Linda, suggesting that finding her body might help prove his innocence. Suddenly, Charles's memory improved. On November 25, 1995, he directed investigators from a helicopter to the remote location where he claimed to have buried Linda. After hours of searching, a forensic anthropologist on site helped recover her remains. To everyone's surprise, the body was remarkably well preserved. Experts attributed this to factors such as the cold weather, altitude, and minimal sun exposure, which had effectively slowed decomposition over the 9 days she had been missing. The autopsy revealed details that contradicted Charles's story. Linda's legs showed no fractures or abrasions consistent with being struck by a vehicle. Instead, her ankles bore rope marks that matched the type found in Charles's home. There were also internal hemorrhages and bruising on her legs, indicating she had been assaulted. Disturbingly, her clothing appeared to have been carefully put back on after her death, which suggested a staged scene rather than a hasty burial following an accident. Another significant finding was the absence of makeup on Linda's face, despite this supposedly being a photo shoot. Her blood work revealed a high alcohol level, and the cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation, with signs that Linda had fought back during her final moments. For Linda's family, learning the horrifying truth of her last minutes was devastating. The knowledge that she had suffered such fear and violence was a source of unimaginable pain. It was Charles Rathbun's attorney who identified Linda's remains through photographs, as her parents and brother were too devastated to see her in such a state. Charles was formally charged with first-degree murder and held on a $1 million bail. Despite the overwhelming evidence, he maintained his innocence. While in custody, Charles attempted suicide, leading authorities to place him under strict monitoring. In a bid to secure a lesser charge of manslaughter, Charles revised his story again. He claimed Linda initiated a romantic encounter, allegedly undressing and trying to seduce him. When he ignored her advances and focused on taking photos, she became upset. According to Charles, he managed to calm her down and convinced her to dress again. He then demonstrated how to perform vehicle stunts, which led to an accident where she was struck, falling and injuring her face. He alleged that he placed her in the vehicle to take her to a hospital, but she became combative, threatening to sue him. When the situation escalated, he restrained her, climbing on top of her to subdue her. Charles claimed he later realized she had stopped breathing and unsuccessfully attempted to revive her. Regarding the ligature marks on her ankles, he said they resulted from tying her feet to move her body when burying her. On December 1, 1995, Linda's funeral was held at the neighborhood church where she had grown up. Over 1,000 people attended, including figures from the modeling industry, family, friends, and strangers moved by her tragic story. The service was widely covered by the media, and heartfelt tributes highlighted the joy Linda brought to those around her and the profound loss of her untimely death. Her grieving family demanded justice. Investigators, however, found Charles's new version implausible, believing the physical evidence spoke to deliberate violence. Aware of his precarious position, Charles introduced yet another defense. He claimed to have 5 rolls of film showing Linda willingly participating in consensual activities inside the vehicle, which was a prototype not yet released to the public. When the authorities examined the films, 4 rolls featured a woman posing in various outfits. The 5th contained 13 blurry images of a woman in provocative poses. The images, however, were double exposed on a previously used roll, obscuring key details such as the interior of the vehicle and the identity of the person photographed. Investigators sought to confirm whether the images were taken inside the same car and whether the woman was, in fact, Linda. Further analysis revealed that, weeks before borrowing the prototype, Charles had photographed a similar vehicle from a different manufacturer. By comparing official images of that car's interior with the blurred photographs, investigators confirmed that the car in the images was not the one Linda had been driving. Additionally, the woman in the photos did not match Linda's physical appearance, nor did the clothing match what Linda had been wearing on the day she disappeared. This version of events was also discredited. Detectives also reached out to all the models featured in the disturbing death pose photographs found in Charles's home to ensure they had only been acting. Meanwhile, media speculation swirled, suggesting Charles might be linked to the disappearances of young women from Michigan to California, as well as other unsolved crimes. However, no evidence emerged to connect him to these cases. Charles's shifting stories and mounting inconsistencies only deepened suspicions about his culpability, while Linda's family continued to push for justice amid their grief. The trial against Charles Rathbun began in mid-October 1996. The prosecution argued that his intent from the outset was to lure Linda to the remote area with the goal of persuading or, if necessary, forcing her into an intimate encounter. They alleged that after providing her with alcohol, an unusual behavior for Linda, according to her close friends, he attempted to coerce her into a sexual relationship. When she resisted, they claimed, he resorted to assaulting her and ultimately took her life. Two models who had worked with Charles in 1994 testified against him. Both stated that Charles had expressed an intense dislike for Linda, often speaking about her in derogatory terms. They recounted how they had overheard him refuse to include her in a swimsuit campaign, declaring that he would only work with her if forced to. Within the modeling community, it was widely rumored that Linda had vehemently rejected Charles's advances in the past, which fueled his bitterness toward her. Charles and his defense team continued to push the narrative of the so-called photographic evidence. However, this tactic proved insufficient and unconvincing in the face of mounting evidence against him. On November 2, 1996, after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury found Charles guilty of first-degree murder and sexual assault. A month later, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Charles was transferred to the California Institution for Men to serve his sentence. As the verdict was delivered, Linda's family tearfully embraced each juror as a gesture of gratitude. Determined to channel their grief into something meaningful, the Sobek family chose to donate the $100,000 reward fund to organizations that support abused women. On the 10th anniversary of Linda's tragic death, her family still struggled with feelings of anger and sorrow. They could not help but wonder if her life might have been spared if the judicial system had taken action against Charles in 1979 when he was accused of abuse. The thought that Linda's death could have been prevented if Charles had been imprisoned back then was a heavy burden for them. Reflecting on Linda's impact, her family described the enduring void her absence left behind. Her mother poignantly remarked, "The world was a better place when my beloved Linda was in it." What do you think? Should the authorities have acted differently in 1979? Do you believe Charles could have been involved in other crimes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.